Zeno had just watched the richest cargo in the Mediterranean go down with his ship off the coast of Athens. Everything he owned gone in one afternoon, and it saved his life. He was a Phoenician trader from Citium on the island of Cyprus, around 30 years old. His business was purple, not the color you are picturing. Tyrian purple was made from sea snails, thousands of them crushed for a few drops of dye. It was the most expensive substance in the ancient world, reserved for kings and senators. A full cargo of it was a fortune that could set up a family for generations. Zeno had a shipload, the richest cargo a man could carry. And on the run toward the port of Piraeus, the harbor of Athens, the sea took all of it. There is a version of this afternoon in every life, the business that folds, the role that vanishes, the plan you built yourself around, gone in a phone call, and the question that comes after, when the thing is gone, what is actually left of you? So picture him, a foreign merchant, washed into a city that is not his, no cargo, no plan, the work of years at the bottom of the bay. By every measure of his trade, Zeno was finished. He did not go down to the docks to find another ship. He walked up into the city and sat down in a bookshop. Modern echo. The moment after the wreck is the moment you learn whether the work was you or just your circumstances. Here is how the story usually gets told. A merchant suffers a disaster, picks himself up, and heroically rebuilds. The shipwreck is the tragedy he overcomes. The lesson is resilience. Keep going. Bounce back. That reading is wrong, and the way it is wrong is the whole point. In the bookshop, Zeno picked up a scroll. It was the second book of Xenophon's Memoirs of Socrates. He started reading, and he could not stop. The portrait of one man, asking hard questions in the street, owning almost nothing, completely unshaken. Zeno looked up and asked the bookseller a single question. Where do I find men like this? At that exact moment, a philosopher named Crates happened to be walking past the shop. The bookseller pointed at him and said 3 words, "Follow that man." So he did. The purple merchant became the student of a street philosopher who slept rough and owned nothing. Zeno never went back to trade. He studied for years, then began teaching in a public colonnade in Athens, a painted porch the Greeks called the Stoa. That porch gave the philosophy its name. We do not call it Zenoism, we call it Stoicism, after the building where a ruined man taught what he learned from losing everything. So the shipwreck was not the tragedy Zeno overcame on his way to philosophy. The shipwreck was the way in. He could not have walked through that door carrying a fortune in purple. The ruin did not interrupt his life. It started it. Years later, looking back, Zeno said it plainly.
I made a prosperous voyage when I was shipwrecked.
Zeno of Citium. A prosperous voyage. The best journey of his life was the one that sank. This is the part that makes Stoicism different from the version sold on posters today. It was not designed by comfortable men as a hobby for managing stress. It was built by a man with nothing left, for people in exactly that condition. Read the Stoics with that in mind, and the whole thing changes shape. The constant return to loss, poverty, exile, and death is not pessimism. It is the engineering. The system was stress-tested at the bottom before it was ever taught at the top. Epictetus, who came generations later and had been a slave, put the mechanism in one line. The problem is never the loss itself. It is what you decide the loss means.
We must not get rid of poverty, but of the opinion about poverty. and then we shall be happy.
Epictetus. Zeno lost the purple. He did not lose the thing that read the scroll, asked the question, and followed crates up the street. That was always his. The sea could not reach it, so bring it into your own life, because this is where it pays off. Say the work goes, the company folds, or the role you held for years is gone, and a piece of your identity goes with it. The instinct is to rebuild the same structure as fast as possible, because sitting in the gap means facing Zeno's question. The Stoic move is to answer it first. What in those years was actually yours, portable, in your own hands? And what were you only renting from the job? One action today. Write the two lists, the skills you own, the status you borrowed. The second list is not your failure, it is your inventory. Now say it is personal. The relationship ends, the one that organized your week and your sense of who you were. Same instinct, rebuild the shape immediately. Same move instead, hold the gap long enough to name one thing you brought to it that was yours before it started and is still yours now. Not what you miss, what you have. Modern echo, the wreck does not take what was actually yours. It just finally shows you which part that was. What was always yours. Stoicism does not work in spite of the shipwreck. It was built out of one. That is the part the motivational version leaves out. Next time, the teacher almost no one names. A Roman knight, exiled twice, who taught a crippled slave in a back room. The slave became Epictetus, more famous than the man who trained him. The mentor gives the frame. The student gets the fame. That is next. Subscribe if you want philosophy tested against the history it actually came from, not the poster version. And the question I want to leave you with, when something you built went under, a business, a plan, a role you thought you were, what did you find was still there once it was gone?